Welcome. Welcome to tonight's meeting dedicated to the community's review of the proposals for redevelopment of the Tropicana Field site. This is the second of 3 such meetings, the first where our community has convened in person to hear directly from the finalist development teams about their visions and proposals for the transformation of the Tropicana Field site. It's one of the preeminent redevelopment opportunities in any community across our country, and it's a generational project that will help chart the course for St. Pete for many years to come. So we're so glad that you're here. It's so critically important. I am Dr. Kanika Tomlin, Deputy Mayor and City Administrator of St. Pete. And it's great, so great, to see each of you here tonight. We have a very packed evening, so we'll get right into it. But first, a quick rewind on all of the collective work our community has done to arrive at this moment. There's been a lot of work. This series of meetings is the first time that we as a community are hearing directly from the developers, but it's not the first time we've come together over this topic. As you know, for more than 6 years, we've been working collectively to craft a vision for the 86 contiguous acres that sits at the crossroads of our community. Together, we authored a vision for what we want to see on that site, who we want to live on that site, the jobs we want created, the legacies, and the history we want acknowledged and preserved, the greenscape we want dedicated, the education we want uplifted, the opportunity we expect to be engineered. We've attended meetings, we've answered questions, we've dared to dream and innovated our ideations until we came up, we being our community, with a blueprint for the successful transformation of the site, with and without a stadium. And we've agreed as a community that we will lead with our values. We will insist on inclusion. We will advance equity. We will be responsibly sustainable in our stewardship of our precious resources, and will be audaciously bold in our aspirations. We've distilled those aspirations and requirements into 21 guiding principles. Those non-negotiables are the framework against which the proposals you'll see tonight were created. And now we continue on the journey with our next step as a community, hearing directly from the development teams that seek to partner with our city in the creation of this critical crossroads where our community will come together to build careers, raise families, enjoy recreation, and celebrate culture, most importantly, celebrate each other. Your questions and feedback following these 3 community meetings will inform the mayor and his decision on the best development partner for the city of St. Pete. And Mayor Kreisman is here with us tonight to share his thoughts on this critical process and what your time and attention means for the optimization of this opportunity. Mayor Kreisman.
Well, good evening, everyone. So before I begin my comments, let me recognize City Council Chair Ed Montanari is here with us. And former Pinellas County Commissioner Ken Welch is here. So let me apologize in advance for anyone, to the teams, but for anyone else who was on the Zoom meeting on Monday. You're going to hear me making the same opening remarks, and the reason I'm making the same opening remarks tonight is I think they're really important, and I want to make sure that everyone gets to hear them. So tomorrow night I'll be making the same remarks because we'll have people here tomorrow night who will not have had this chance either. So first I want to thank my city team for their efforts in making tonight and this week possible. As the Deputy Mayor said, this isn't the first time we've engaged the public related to this site. Public engagement goes back many years, including the master planning process that occurred during my first term as mayor. And this also isn't the last time that we will engage with the public on this site. This site has a long, deep history in this city. Many promises were made, promises which remain unfulfilled. And it's because of the history and the unkept promises that the public, our residents, and our business owners, and any other interested stakeholders must be involved every step of the way until the last ribbon is cut on this site. The elected officials in St. Pete and in Pinellas County represent you, the public. We do not represent the developers, the Tampa Bay Rays, or anyone else who might be looking to do something that isn't aligned with the pursuit of our brightest future. We are committed to ensure that the mistakes that were made in the past are not repeated. And our vision statement is clear. It says, we will honor our past as we pursue our future. And that's the goal here. We must do right by those who came before us. And we must do right by the next generation. Now, we have 4 development teams who understand our vision. They have poured a lot of time, energy, and money into their proposals. And I am grateful for their interest and for their partnerships with local leaders and businesses. St. Pete is a city that is on the rise. And these final 4 serious developers who come to us from across the country each recognize that they won't succeed without community leaders at the table, without this being a people-powered process. They also recognize that they must be flexible enough to accommodate the existing stadium and baseball team, along with redeveloping the site with or without a new stadium. Now, given that this is a generational endeavor, that it will take many years, perhaps 10 or 20 years, for the site to be fully developed, the uncertainty related to the Rays is not an obstacle. The city of St. Petersburg, these development teams, our residents, all want to move forward and begin the process that will ultimately lead to jobs, housing, green space, along with many other exciting opportunities. Again, this is a generational project. Many mayors, many council members will come and go before this redevelopment is complete. But we must start somewhere. I'm tired of looking at a desert of concrete in the middle of our downtown. I want to see activity. I want to see opportunity for the residents of this community. So tonight is about listening and learning and asking questions and then learning again. Most importantly, we want your feedback. We need your feedback. So I thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for being engaged and to helping the sun to shine so brightly on us here in the Burg. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor Kreisman. Thank you very much. Now let's get started with tonight's presentations. I'll share a little insight as to how we will progress through this evening. Each development team will have 15 minutes by which to present its proposal to you. The 4 presentations will be followed by 1 hour of questions and answers. We're lucky tonight to have Trevor Pettiford of Bay News 9 here to moderate the question and answer session this evening. Thank you so much, Trevor, for being here. Everything is better with a little Trevor in the mix. Now, please feel free to submit a question at any point during the meeting. Pencils and comment cards have been left on each seat. You saw that when you took your seat. But additional comment cards are available at the comment card tables. If you find that you have an additional question that comes to you after you've already submitted, grab another card. It's absolutely okay. We want to know your questions. You can also submit questions digitally using slido.com, and that login information is available at the comment card tables as well. Now, a 5-minute intermission will follow each presentation. This will allow time for you to deposit your questions into one of the comment card boxes, as well as allow time for turnover and transition between the teams. Each development team will be given an equal time to respond to your questions. And this is designed to ensure equity in the amount of time each team has to engage with you. And our fabulous team of marketing and economic development professionals will be facilitating this process every step of the way, keeping time for each session, collecting questions, helping with any detail that might arise. So if you have a need, raise your hand, let us know. We're here to help you. Following the formal programmed part of the meeting, the venue will remain open for about 30 minutes to allow your one-on-one interactions with the development teams. Each team is set up in an alcove at the perimeter of the building, and we encourage that interaction. Got it? Great. So let's get started for real this time. Our first team to present is Portman Holdings Third Lake. And Ken Jones, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Third Lake Partners, will kick it off for this team. Ken?
Well, thank you, Mayor Kreisman, Dr. Tomlin, Chairman Manta Ray, I think you're over there somewhere, I see you, and Commissioner Welch. Thank you for guys coming out, and for everybody else, thank you for coming out. I know difficult circumstances in the middle of a, hopefully a waning pandemic, so thank you for coming and being a part of this. Tonight, we're going to walk through a couple of things, what to expect from our presentation. We're going to introduce you to the Portman Third Lake team. We're going to talk about what our vision is for community and local understanding for this site, which I think is critically important. We're going to talk about the community engagement and the benefits that come from that engagement. This is not just about having one meeting or doing a pre-meeting before the RFP. It's about doing this all the way through the process, even once a winner is selected. And even if it's not us, I hope that all these other folks in the room tonight will continue that engagement process because it is so important. Our design vision, which I think is very unique, it maximizes the site and it really adds color and thoughtfulness, not only to the current development, but to the history of the site, which is very important. And then we'll wrap up with some concluding thoughts. But right now I'm going to turn it over to Hunter Richardson from Portman Holdings.
Good evening. Thank you for coming. I'm Hunter Richardson with Portman Holdings, and we've partnered with Third Lake and with Portman Residential, which is our sister company of ours, to form the nucleus of a team that we think can do a great job in terms of embracing the community and do a great job relative to listening and translating that into a plan that can work for the community. With that, we've got roughly $15 billion worth of real estate development that we've done between the three of us. We've worked together before. We do offices, hotel, retail, residential, entertainment, and so we cover all the uses, and they're all uses that we would do in-house effectively. With that, we also added to it Echelon, who are the developers of Carillon, and Daryl LeClaire, because we really wanted to add more local experience. We wanted that expertise. We also brought in Piper Sandler so that when we get to the public financing side of it, that we use somebody that has had roughly $20 billion. Is that loud? Okay, well, Piper, I'm sorry about that, ma'am. We brought in Piper Sandler to help us with the public financing. They effectively have done over $20 billion of public financing, and so we wanted to have their expertise as we need to be able to finance a project to this scale. We also took the approach of bringing on 3 master planners, HKS, 5+ Design, and BBB. The idea was to get 3 different design teams working together to be creative about creating a venue and a use for the Tropicana site. We're also used to dealing with multiple communities. We have been dealing with urban revitalization since the 1960s with Peachtree Center in downtown Atlanta. We worked with San Francisco, Detroit, Charlotte, Nashville, and a number of other cities. And so we're used to dealing with cities, and we like to listen to the cities to know what's going on. When we start projects, we like to start off by engaging the community, and that was one of the reasons we brought HKS onto the team, because they did the master planning back in 2016, and so we wanted to hear from them what the community wanted. The next step, though, was to really get out into the community, to engage the community, and really find out what the community wants. With that, I'm going to hand it back to Ken.
So I will take my mask off. Wow, that's really loud now. Okay, so I think this is one of the most important slides that we're going to have tonight, and I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about it. So really understanding the past, the present, and the future of this site. And I know most of you in this room are familiar with the site. Just a little personal background on me. I moved here to Tampa Bay when I was 4 years old. I moved here in 1976. I remember driving up US 19, stuck in traffic from Port Richey, Florida, all the way to St. Petersburg. And then that was when the gas plant district was still there. And I remember as a child seeing all these black-owned churches and minority-owned businesses and beautiful neighborhoods. And I remember the debate very vividly about should we or should we not have a professional sports team. And it went back and forth for a long time. At one point, I think it was the White Sox. Another time, it was going to be something else. And really what got lost in that conversation was, what about the people that live there? Because it's one thing to say we're going to build a sports stadium, and by the way, we'll take care of you, we promise, wink, wink. And then it never happened. And I remember reading the stories in what was then the St. Petersburg Times newspaper as a young teenager, and reading about baseball, and that's all it was about. It became all about sports. It became all about team owners. It became all about baseball. And then people in these neighborhoods got left behind. South St. Petersburg, Campbell Park, Melrose, Deuces Live, the Warehouse, all these people got left behind. And the promises, as Mayor Kreisman talked about, never got fulfilled. So our goal, as we think about this development, is to take a look at those 21 guiding principles that the city laid out to say, how do we incorporate that into our development? Everything from housing to retail to office. And it starts at the development stage. And it's really not about checking a box to get some people some lower income or middle income or market rate housing. It's about how do you educate people to have permanent employment, permanent jobs, permanent improvement in their lives. If it was just about building one type of a product, it's never that easy. It's always about how do you make sure that people can get better throughout their life. And so that's what we're going to do through the development stage. We're going to have communication strategies with not only the community, but stakeholders, thought leaders, church leaders, business leaders. We'll have on-site public spaces to come and visit to see our designs. We'll have virtual, and hopefully when the pandemic is gone, we'll have in-person meetings where we'll have Meet the Developer Days where you can come in and talk to any of our development team about the project. We'll have dedicated resources. We'll have an online website where you can log on and you can take a look and see what we're doing in real time. And then we're going to do outreach to schools and have educational visits so that everybody in the community understands what it is we're doing. At the operational stage, we'll have affordable retail and office space for local businesses. We'll have youth and adult education centers for that workforce training, which is just so critical to make sure that it gets done the right way. We'll have things like free and affordable fitness classes. We'll have communal spaces. And the biggest part of this is we want to connect these neighborhoods. Right? This is not about building independent neighborhoods that are not connected. If you look at our plan, we've got some connectivity across I-75. And so for us, this piece is the most important. How do we engage the community? How do we make sure that we've got connectivity between all those different groups in St. Petersburg? And now I'm going to turn it over to Eric Antelec at HKS to talk a little bit more about his experience with community engagement, because HKS was involved in this process in the last go-round, and we want to make sure that we talk to you about where we've been and where we need to go. So, Eric?
Thanks, Ken. And for those of you who share my wife's vision, if my voice is too loud, I'll put the mask back on. So we were here in 2016 in this room. We led a lot of these sessions with the comment cards you see. We have those data points. We have all of those pages of comments. We've heard the stories. We also have all the documents that were shared in the RFP. But I think we all would agree the world's a little different today. So we have to restart that process again. We don't want to throw away what we heard. We want to build on it. And we want to find out what's true today. So we also want to go through these sessions again. You can see some of the sessions we did at the top. And we've got, right here in this room, we did some pretty collaborative shredding, right? So we want to continue doing that. And we want to continue doing that 10 years into the future, because I guarantee you the world in 2030 isn't going to be what it is today. And the issues that St. Petersburg faces in 2030 may be slightly different than they are today. So it's not a one-stop engagement. It's an ongoing process. We want to work towards the essence of the story. Next slide, please. We want to work towards the essence of the story. When we sit down and master plan projects, we're not looking for a story, we're looking for multiple stories that connect the fabrics of the community. We look for the story because we use that to inform us on what changes we make and the designs we make. The master plan we came up with was based on the information we had, told us we needed to reconnect the streets. We needed to reconnect the fabric of the neighborhoods to the south, Deuces Live, Campbell Park, with the neighborhoods on the east, Edge District. We need to reintroduce the Arts District from the west, the Warehouse District, bring it under 275, incorporate 275 as an element if we can, and make it part of the public plazas that will be part of the stadium project if it's there. If not, let's connect it to Booker Creek and treat that as a ceremonial lawn. Let's make Booker Creek an element of elegance versus what it is today. Let's have people, families, connecting along Booker Creek. We know we have an obstacle on the south in 175. We don't know if we can fix that or not. We do know there's a lot of dirt below it. So we can raise the elevated bridges. We can connect the communities to the bottom. If we can get rid of it, maybe we can get rid of it. That'd be great. But I can tell you from working with Bayfront Medical Center in the past and from All Children's, their ambulances, their emergency vehicle access is critical to them. So if they remain there and they're great community partners, we need to find a way of being careful not to segregate that as well. Go ahead to the next slide, please. We looked at the 21 design principles that the city published in the RFP. These align beautifully with HKS's connection to the Committee on the Environment that the AIA has published. We're part of the United Nations Global Alliance in terms of environmental sustainability. We pay attention to the social economic values involved in projects. So here we're looking at the arts and culture. How do we infuse the arts and culture that are all around this great city? This is a really funky city. How do we bring that to the core of this project? How do we keep it funky? We have to create moments for those opportunities to exist. Sustainability and wellness is at the core of what we do. Everything we do at HKS is at a LEED Silver level participation. It doesn't mean we necessarily go and get a plaque on the wall, but it means as a developer, as an owner, as a resident, as a member of the community, you feel great about what's there. We also look at the community benefit. We talked about some of the points in the city that we're going to create, the infrastructure, the transportation, et cetera. Anybody who developed the city today and didn't consider smart city connectivity would be a fool. We have to make sure we include that. We have to make sure we include some sustainable initiatives. Shelby's going to talk a little bit more about that for you.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, sustainability is more than just being green, it's really as designers, we think about it as wellness, as community wellness. We're at a really advantage with this site. We can do something in the United States that we do on projects kind of over the world, especially in China, but not here. We can see this as a district, with renewable energy, with infrastructure in place. We could, stuff that is going to come out in the future, and we've got to think that way. But most importantly is with the wellness. What does it really mean to the community? How do we get access to food, transportation, parks, and infrastructure?
3-minute warning.
Everybody can enjoy it. Next slide, Reed. And then how does that tie into the history and the culture? At the heart of our project is a cultural hub adjacent to an amphitheater for cultural arts. And that ties in, so we have some initiatives where we could work with local artists to create the history among the site in St. Pete. And, I don't have to tell you that St. Pete's the city of the arts. It's really important we tie that in through the whole thing. And Harvey's going to really tell you more of how we implement that and truly create a live, work, play environment.
Thank you, Shelby. So I focus on our residential business, but want to go through the programming, and we're a little short on time, so I'm going to try to get through this quickly. But I think the biggest takeaway that we want to leave you with is, one thing we know is the plan's going to change. We've delivered what we think is a very comprehensive plan with a variety of end users to create a very urban 24/7 district in St. Pete. But we know it's going to change. We've received a lot of feedback so far, but the process has just started. We hope to receive a lot more feedback, and so the plan will change with that. And even after we start, the plan will continue to change as we work through the process. I'm going to skip going through all the details of the components, but it's a mixture of uses. It's office, it's residential, it's retail, it's cultural uses, it's a lot of public green space. A big component will be residential, though, and our plan is to offer residential from low-rise to mid-rise to high-rise, which gives us a diversity of product, which allows for diversity of incomes, which we think is very important to creating a more equitable and diverse and inclusive community. Affordable housing is very important to us and will be very important to this community, but we really think of affordable housing more as mixed income. We actually build a lot of affordable housing, but we're not known as affordable housing developers because it's mixed within the communities. It's indistinguishable from the rest of the product. You don't realize that we're building affordable housing because it looks like market rate housing. Real quick on the phasing, the plan is to start on the northeast to connect to the street grid and the urban fabric to the north, and then kind of work our way to the southwest. Thinking build out over 10 years, 10 plus years at 5 distinct phases. But again, even this is going to change as we receive more and more feedback from the community, and economic conditions change, and just the development evolves. Hopefully there's a lot of community feedback in what we do, and it evolves with all of us. So I'm going to hand it back to Ken real quick to talk about community benefits.
Well, we've got about 30 seconds left and a couple of boxes to cover. So I'll not cover all these, but you can see these are the types of things that we think about when you're doing a comprehensive community. It's about jobs, it's about the arts, environmental education, recreation, health and wellness, about mobility. And the biggest thing, if I could have you take anything away from tonight, it's that this should be not death by PowerPoint tonight. This should be think about thoughtful questions. This should be a continuous feedback loop. This should not be a bunch of people standing up here talking at you. This is a conversation, and we want to continue that conversation. So thank you for coming, and we look forward to your questions later this evening.
Thank you so much, Portman Holdings, Third Lake. This will be our first 5-minute intermission. Please stretch, drop your questions off in the comment boxes, and we will gather again in less than 5 minutes, stay on a strict schedule, and move to our next presenter. Thank you. All right, thank you for your attention. Next up, we have Sugar Hill Community Partners and JMA Ventures. Presenting on this team's behalf is David Carlock, founder and president of the Machete Group.
Okay. Everybody hear me okay? All right, great. Thank you very much, Madam Vice Mayor. Thank you to the mayor, other electeds who are here today, Ed Montanari, Ken Welch. I'm David Carlock. I'm the project manager for the Sugar Hill team. We're delighted to be here this evening to share a little bit more about our proposal. Why don't we jump to the next slide here? So we're going to spend a lot of time tonight talking about the future of the Trop. We feel strongly, as I know many others do, that we can't realize the full potential of this development without acknowledging and celebrating its past. And in that respect, we think that Quincy has it right. It's something we've been thinking about now for quite a long time. The African-American laborers who worked on the Orange Belt back in the late 1880s really started the settlement of St. Petersburg by African-Americans, and they built that railway. And that Orange Belt, in many respects, is what put St. Petersburg on the map. So that contribution began then and has continued ever since. They founded neighborhoods like Methodist Town, Peppertown, 22nd Street South, and Sugar Hill, which is the inspiration for our team name. And in the spirit of that, we want to make sure that legacy is honored. And we think that it should be honored through something that's inclusive, something that's accessible to all, whatever your ethnicity, religious belief, lifestyle choice, that's all a part of what we want to offer here. And I think almost most importantly, we want to return this site to the vibrant neighborhood that it was decades ago. And we've proposed a lot of things that we believe align with that, and we're eager to tell you more about them. Let's jump to the next slide. I'll also mention, by the way, in the spirit, or in keeping with that spirit, we've literally met now with almost 100 folks in this community, political or public figures. We've talked to educators, we've talked to researchers, we've talked to entrepreneurs, and I want to take this moment to thank all of them for being so generous with their time and their insight, and I want to extend an invitation to everybody else to come and see us. We'll be available over here afterwards, obviously. We're going to talk a little bit about developer hours later on in the presentation. And we're eager to share more about what we've come up with and eager to learn more about your hopes, concerns, ideas, and questions. We're going to cover 3 things today: our team, our vision, and we'll spend a little bit of time on our community benefits plan. We can't get through the whole thing given the time we have, but we want to touch on some of the important pieces. Let's jump to the next slide. How are we doing here? I feel like I'm on a baking show or something. Okay, here we go. So we think our team is the very best combination of global and local. Global experience and perspective, local experience and perspective. The orange bars denote local folks. We feel like that's a lot of orange. And these are your neighbors. You may go to the same church. You may bump into each other at the supermarket. These are people who are of your community and have a unique perspective on what success at the Trop can and should feel like. And for those of us who aren't fortunate enough to live at St. Petersburg, we have all developed and share that same passion for what this project can become. This is a once-in-a-generation, maybe a once-in-a-few-generation opportunity to fill in the hole in the donut, to connect this site with all the exciting and vibrant neighborhoods around it. So let me just briefly introduce the folks who are here with us tonight. Next slide. We're good. Go ahead, Jordan. Okay, so we talked about me, plenty about me already. Michael Sorensen is the design lead for Henning Larsen, one of the best regarded planning architectural firms in the country. He'll talk to you more in a couple of minutes. Ernie Dubose from Ducon Construction is one of our contracting partners. Ernie's the owner and founder of Dubose. Michael McManus is here from JMA. JMA is our lead development partner. Linda Nunnally is here from Moody Nolan. Moody Nolan is the largest African-American owned design firm, architectural firm in the country. They also were awarded the prestigious Architectural Firm of the Year award by the AIA last year. We're thrilled to have them on board. Jordan and Sarah Jane are here from Bahar. You got to say it for me. I can never say it. Thank you. Okay. Petronex. Barbara Wilkes is here from W Architecture. Barbara's firm did all the landscape design on the approach for the pier here in St. Pete, which we know has been extraordinarily successful. Adam Carnegie is here from Stantec. Stantec is our civil engineer. They also handle hydrology, they handle parking, they handle all kinds of things for us. Adam is a former attorney, reformed attorney perhaps, and now an urban planner. Thomas Huggins is here from Ariel Business Group. Thomas is overseeing all of our diversity inclusion efforts, not just at the beginning of the project, but throughout the life of the project. And then we have a surprise guest, Sean Wilson. He's kind of a stealth ops guy, so it makes sense that he's not up on the slide, but Sean is the head of Blue Sky Communities. They're a leader in affordable housing development here in Tampa, St. Pete. So this is a big project. It's important to have the appropriate kinds of experience. The development side of our team has overseen and delivered more than $10 billion worth of projects, and we've done more than $700 million worth here in St. Petersburg. So we know big projects, we know this market, we know how to get things done. Let's go to the next slide. We also significantly, we think, and like everybody else, or almost everybody else, I guess, we're not quite sure what's going to happen with the Rays, but we really know sports. We've worked on, well, significantly more than $5 billion, actually, dollars worth of sports venue projects. Chase Center in San Francisco, the new MLS stadium in Cincinnati, we're delivering that in a couple of months, and Citi Field, which is the home of the New York Mets in Major League Baseball. So if the Rays stay, and we'd be thrilled if they did, we're prepared to be a knowledgeable and efficient partner who can help make sure they get what they need to be successful and can help make sure that the development around the stadium is also set up for success, that all those uses can live together successfully going forward. Okay, next slide. Thank you, Jordan. There we go. And affordable and workforce housing is an important part of the program. Sean and his team and others who are part of our development group have delivered more than 1,700 units. We have another 1,150 that are in the pipeline. So something we're very familiar with, and again, are doing it here in the St. Petersburg market. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, I'm going to hand things over to Michael, and I'll be back shortly. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this on? Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. It's been really great, the whole team here working for the last couple of months to really create a transformational vision for the Tropicana Fields. And as David said, we've spoken to a lot of people, and we've talked to your neighbors, we've spent time in St. Pete and really getting to know St. Pete. We've learned about your history. I, in particular, have learned about your climate and what your ambitions are for the site and how it can be a positive attribute to St. Pete's future. It's been incredibly inspiring, the process, and we're thrilled to have a chance to share that with you today. And our hope is to bring a lasting positive impact to St. Pete for you, your children, and your grandchildren. Next, please. Our team has worked in cities around the world, and when you think about the qualities and spaces that make a great city, a lot of common traits are shared. Cities, when they're best, are designed for people. They are inviting, they are lively, they are walkable, and they're connected. They have plenty of public space and plenty of green space. They are home to opportunity, they are home to creativity, and they are home to community. Next, please. What's been so inspiring about the project is that all of these qualities exist here today in St. Pete. The activities on the piers, the cafes, the vibrant street life, the arts and cultural scene, the historic architecture, Pinellas Trail, Booker Creek, everything is already here, and it makes St. Pete an incredibly vibrant city. Our proposal is about bringing the best of St. Pete to the Tropicana site and making it accessible, affordable, and an invitation to everybody. Next, please. Our design vision is driven by 4 themes: reconnecting, rebuilding, and remembering, connecting through nature, extending the human scale of downtown into the site, and creating landmark civic stages and spaces. These 4 themes are not only visionary goals for the project, but they are also physical elements that structure the design of the site and build new connections between people. Next, please. First of all, our proposal starts by reconnecting the site to the surrounding communities, celebrating the history, the culture, and the experiences that made this site a thriving neighborhood many years ago. A history walk filled with local art and memorials defines the main pedestrian path that cuts diagonally through the site. This serves as the key connection back to downtown, the Warehouse Arts District, Juices Live, Campbell Park, and Melrose. Here you can see an image of what that history walk starts to feel like. It's human scaled, it's shaded, it's active, it's inviting, and it's vibrant. I'd ask Barbara to talk a bit about the landscape.
Hi. Bringing together people and nature provides profound impacts on human health and community wellness. While we will incorporate nature throughout this plan, the existing Booker Creek provides the biggest opportunity for restoring a complete ecology and providing a place for community gathering and engagement. And we have done this before. Our team has restored over 1,000 miles of streams. And from this experience, we understand that nature is dynamic. Our design includes nested channels that accommodate low flows and high waters. We will continue to refine Booker Creek Park with your input, as well as that from scientists and other experts. Please come visit our table and give us your ideas. Thanks.
Thanks. Can we take the next slide? We are proposing a diverse mix of programs on site to bring jobs, homes, and activities to St. Pete. An innovation campus along Booker Creek will build on St. Pete's already strong legacy as a hub for innovation. It will invite jobs and give companies place to grow. A 1.3 million square foot convention center and hotel has the potential to become a national and regional destination. A robust housing scheme will make sure the neighborhood is accessible and affordable for all. We also look forward to working with the Rays in placing their new stadium as an important link between the site and the city. And at the heart of this, the buildings and the urban spaces will be treated and designed with the human scale at heart. Next, please. Anchored at either end of the History Walk are 2 landmark civic spaces. At the west end, the grand stair and shaded plaza of the Convention Center offer a stage for public life. It's vibrant. It's a place for gatherings, for markets, for events, for theater, for small concerts. It can be, the convention center can combine with an arts and performance center and thereby also add to the vibrancy by adding performance spaces, public gallery spaces, and teaching facilities. Next, please. Although our proposal offers 2 schemes, one with a future stadium and one without, they are both rooted in history and driven by the same vision. This vision is to create a connected, sustainable, and livable community in the heart of St. Pete. This slide shows the 2 schemes. You can see that Booker Creek becomes an important and connected green space in the city and in the development district. The red circles indicate important connections back to the city in the northeastern corner and the southwestern corner. They also mark either end of the history walk that runs through the site. You can see here in the Sugar Hills proposal, the history walk becomes a part of the vibrant streetscape that is adjacent to the ballpark and becomes an everyday retail street. In Scheme B, the connection connects back to the city. I think we're running short of time, so I've got to hand it back to David.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move fast. Next slide, please. Let's skip this one. We have a plan. There's lots of stuff in it. Let's go to the next one. Okay, jobs. Jobs matter. We have a very detailed plan on jobs. We're already working with folks like Mike Ramsey over at St. Petersburg College. The key here is not 30,000 jobs. The key here is how do we make sure that as many people as possible from this community know about the jobs, are trained up properly to successfully apply and execute against those jobs. I would love to talk to somebody for 3 hours about that subject, so please feel free to come by. Ernie?
Thank you, David. So for the sake of time, you're going to get my condensed version. So I'm here excited to talk to you about our small, local, and minority business plan. So one thing that we know that when we have projects like this, we have to set those businesses up for success. It has to have proper outreach, proper inclusion, proper preparation. We know this because we've benefited from such projects. As a state certified general contractor, we've benefited from a mentor program with large national builders. Currently, we have over $300 million in the Bay Area worth of construction going. And what that done is it's not only benefited us as a general contractor, but it's created many opportunities for our small, local, and minority-owned businesses. When we talk about our program and our process, we don't speak from theory or philosophy. We speak from proven experience, proven results. In the past 6 years, all DuCon managed projects has awarded over 20% of all subcontracts to local, small, women, and minority-owned businesses. In just the past year, in the Tampa Bay area, we've awarded over $20 million specifically to minority-owned businesses. So it's not, construction to us is not just about a project. It's our passion. Inclusion is our passion. It's our purpose. It's what we do. We plan to set the bar even higher on the Trop. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Sean Wilson to talk to you about our affordable housing plan.
Thank you very much, Ernie. Thanks, everybody, for being here. You're going to get a lot of affordable housing in this redevelopment, no matter who the city selects. How do you know it's going to be top quality affordable housing? How do you know it's going to be nice for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years? There's only one team that has a local track record stretching back all the way to 1971 in affordable housing, and that's Blue Sky Communities. Right across the street, Peterborough Apartments, that's the building that we own. It was built 40 years ago. It's still nice. It still provides a valuable service to the folks in St. Petersburg, and you will get that with Sugar Hill. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have plenty more to share. I know we're out of time. I hope that you'll come by and visit with us. I hope you'll take advantage of developer hours, and we're thrilled to be here. So thank you all for your attention. Appreciate it.
Our next development team is Unicorp National Developments. Chuck Woodall, Master Developer and President of Unicorp National Developments, will lead this team's presentation. We're going to get started with the next presentation. If you could please take your seats and give us your attention. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Chuck Woodall from Unicorp National Developments. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilman, and thank you to the entire community for taking time out of your evening to come and engage with us tonight. So I'm honored to be here, honored to be part of the process. We are going to be a little bit different. We're not going to read scripts. We're going to have a conversation with you tonight. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my background first. I was born and raised in Central Florida. My dad was a fireman. I got into business when I was a little boy, and so I know what it's like to build businesses, and that's a big part of what we're going to talk about tonight. So I've been in business all my life and been in the development business 23 years. We've done about $5 billion worth of business, and we grew our company organically. We didn't grow it with investors. We grew it from one development to the next, to the next, to the next, and we've continued to grow. Currently, today, we've got about $2 billion worth of developments going on as we speak today, and we are super excited to be part of this. This is a wonderful opportunity to create a community. And I'm not going to introduce every one of our team members, but every one of these people up here have worked their tails off, and they're all excellent people. I don't have any orange bars underneath their name because we're all locals or around local. So we're all from the local community, Central Florida community, St. Petersburg, Tampa, and the surrounding area. This is a very important community for us. And I use the word community because it is a community. You know, in our world, we always talk about developments, and yes, we develop. But this is an opportunity to build a community. What you see on the board behind me was really interesting for me to look at. This is what the original community that lays at the Tropicana Field was there. And that actually has 33 acres, the blue area, of open common space. And those were the different houses and the different retail developments and the churches. And that's what was there way back before the Tropicana Field was there. And here's a redevelopment plan that was proposed a long time ago from St. Petersburg. And this plan, as you see, the green area, has 23 acres of open space. And as we all know, this plan was never built. It was replaced by the Tropicana Stadium. But what's interesting is if you look, what you used to have on the property were grocery stores, beauty salons, barber shops, game rooms, cleaners, TV, liquor store, things like that, and churches. And those are the type of developments that Unicorp does every single day of the week. Lucky enough, when we started our company, we never got into soft good retail. We didn't sell things that malls sell and things like that. And it was no genius on our part. We just knew we couldn't compete with those guys. So we started doing lifestyle centers. We build our own apartments. We build our own hotels. We build our own single-family homes. We build our own apartments. So we've done a lot of this, and we've created many communities, mainly in Central Florida. We've done 26 different states, but the bulk of what we do is right here in our own backyard. So we've created a great plan. I'm going to let, we got this fabulous architect, Ziskovich. He's done everything everywhere. But I'm going to let him talk about the plan. But the one thing I want to say in the very beginning of it is we've created a 37-acre park. And when we got together and we all started talking about this vision together, I said, guys, we got an opportunity to build a community. And how can we bring what happened in the past, all the land they lost, and all the businesses they lost, and all the housing they lost, how can we bring it back together? And I said, let's centralize everything around a park. A park is a place where everybody can get together during the day for lunch, weekends for picnics, kids play soccer. We have a roller skating rink in the middle of the park that we don't have ice skating up north, but when I was a kid, I roller skated a lot, and I thought, how cool would it be if kids could go out on the weekends and roller skate out in the park? We have an Avery in the park. We really thought the park would bring the entire St. Petersburg community together. It's not just for the four corners of this property. It will create a halo effect for all the neighborhoods around. It will make everything better for everybody to have a nice green space to go. As I look at this room tonight, it's a great gathering spot, and I'm sure there's been great concerts and plays and things on the stage. But out here, you're going to have music festivals. You're going to have Easter egg hunts. You're going to have, I could see an annual lighting of the Christmas tree that brings the entire community together. So, Bernard, before I have you talk, LaShante, can you come up for a minute? I'd like you to tell everybody how we got together, and this is a great guy who's from here, and his heart's here, his passion's here, and he's going to hold us accountable to what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Exactly. See, we're already working together by switching mics. As he said, my name is LaShante Keys, and I'm with Inclusivity. And Inclusivity works on cultural competence with organizations around the community. For me, St. Pete is my home. Born and raised, been here all my life. I've been here long enough to see what they used to call Bogey. Now they call it the Bogosiega High School. So I've been here that long to see that transformation. But what brought me back was, again, I was at Florida A&M University back in '96, and I looked on the screen. And on that screen, our city was on fire. Our city was on fire due to the riots. And I recall stating, I'm never going back home. I'm never going back to that city again. It was an older lady who walked past me and said, well, what are you doing to change it? I didn't understand what she meant until 4 years later when I came back home to St. Petersburg and started working for the National Conference for Community and Justice. And working with them, we did a program called Anytown. And so from that point on, community has always been my passion. My St. Petersburg has always been my passion to make sure that we are a better community than any other community out there. This is home. This is home for a lot of us. What community engagement looks like with this group, we're going to hold them accountable. Inclusivity will hold them accountable to make sure that we are respecting the past, but also honoring the future. So we're going to be calling on different individuals in this room. We're going to call on different individuals to make a difference. We need high schoolers to give me their voice because we have a lot of talent who are leaving this area, but they are not coming back. For some reason, they're not coming back. So we need to know why they're not coming back. We also are going to be working with ADA specialists. The city of St. Petersburg has an extraordinary ADA specialist, and we need to be working with him as well. Here's the reason why. There's no need for us to be creating a park that we're saying respecting our elders when our elders can't get around in that park. And so as inclusivity, as working with community engagement, we are going to be looking for voices. We're going to be holding this group accountable for what they've promised, because again, as you already know, we don't want any more empty promises to be given out in this community anymore. And so we need your voice, and we look forward to having you. We want to make sure that this park is where you can bring your family back to. How many of you have grandkids that you got to go out of town to go visit because there's nothing here in St. Pete for them to do? So you have to take them out of town. This is what Peters Park is about. Peters Park is about you bringing your family and having them come here as well. So again, that's briefly. We'll be here for more talk, but I know Chuck has some more stuff he wants to add on as well.
Thank you, LaShante. And Bernard, if you'll talk about the plan for a minute.
Hello. Is this on? Thank you. Hello, St. Petersburg. We're very excited to be here and to be a part of this incredible team. Our mission is to honor the past, and many times what we think is that the best way to honor the past is to really begin to think about the future. We've all been going through a very difficult time as a community for the past year, and urban design, planning, and architecture needs to be forward-looking because in many respects, the world has changed, but some things have not changed. The desire to communicate with each other, which is why we have the park as the central focus of our project. But more importantly than that even, is the opportunity for jobs with a multiple array of different ways in which we can work in this community. We have offices, we have something I'm very proud of, which is what we call flex space. So if you think about innovation companies and startups, the kind of space they need is really more like a loft. They need to be able to rent a small space, but be in a community with people that have large companies so that they can be mentored and learn. We've designed this campus as the community as a campus. We want it to be walkable. We have it all as a bicycle-oriented activity. We have mobility hubs that allow us to connect, but if you look closely at the plan, you'll see that all of our blocks align with the other blocks in the city. They are identical in size. We think that the way to show success in the future is when you come here at some point in the future when this is built, this community will look like it's always been here. We want the residential efforts to also be very similar. We have a wide array of residential offerings that Chuck has been talking to us about, everything from rental units to loft units to ownership units. They're all mixed income. And they're all going to be available to the entire community. If you go to the next slide, we can show you that this is the centerpiece. This is not just a park that is planned for particular activities, although we have a lot of them, like roller skating rinks, which I know Chuck is very excited about.
And do me a favor, Bernard, because we're going to run out of time. We don't want to, but tell them about the Manta Ray.
Yeah, the Ray Stadium. I've been mentioning to people, as architects, we like to have fun when we're drawing. So we created the stadium in the shape of a ray, and we think that it could actually be a very iconic element for the city. But you can see that it flows right out into the park. If you've ever been to San Diego and Petco Park, it works the same way. So we're very excited about that. We have hotels, we have all kinds of other venues, and Chuck, take it away.
Thanks. Yeah, I thought it was kind of cool. It's very artsy how he made the stadium as a Manta Ray. So what's really important here, and I'll tell you really quickly, all of us developers build buildings. We all build apartments, or they team up with someone with apartments, or we team up with someone for, whatever. We may team up with somebody. At the end of the day, who is going to be able to deliver a vision, a passion, a dream, and be able to bring the community together? The one thing I'll tell you during COVID, and we learned a lot about our company, our own integrity, is we did not evict one single tenant during COVID. We have over 500 tenants in our portfolio. And you know what we did? We worked with every single one of them. I physically took phone calls from every single one of them. I got my phone in here somewhere. Every single one of them I talked to and worked with them and worked with their business plans to make sure they would survive. And they did. They all survived. And it says a lot for our company that that's what we did in time of need for the community. And here, a lot of this is going to be building businesses and working with young entrepreneurs who want to start a business. And it's so important for us to let locals come together. I'm going to let Taylor talk about that for one moment. And she's nervous. She didn't know she was going to talk.
Put me on the spot. Well, one of the things that, I just said this to someone else, I've spent a lot of weekends in St. Pete visiting friends over the years, and it's easy to recognize that what makes it so beautiful is the life that these small businesses bring to St. Pete. So that kind of makes our job easy because there is already so much culture here, and we don't intend to change that, but to expand upon that. We want to see the small businesses grow and to bring color to our project. So looking forward to that.
Thanks. It is important for us. I mean, I've traveled and gone to many, many successful cities, and what makes successful cities great cities to go to are the local flavors. It's the local businesses. We've done plenty of the Olive Gardens and Yard Houses and Seasons 52s and restaurants like that, but when you get the local restaurants and the local businesses, that really weaves the fabric of the community. So it's really important for us to make sure that we have those businesses. And our RFP is 206 pages, but I will tell you that in our RFP, we have plans to be able to help those young businesses come in and get started off with free rent, with discounted rent, working with them on business plans. We want to help and bring the local community. It needs to lift together. And we're also hiring local contractors. We're hiring Moss Construction. They're already working for us. Cast works for us. We have Power Design. Your third largest employer in St. Petersburg is doing all of my work in Central Florida and all around Florida. So we are absolutely engaging in the community. So it's not something we're going to tell you we are going to do. It's something we already do today, even though we're not building the Tropicana property today as we speak. So what I would like you guys to take away from our community, our presentation, it is our community that we would like to see, but what I'd like you to take away from our presentation is that, yes, we're going to build all the office. We've already got a letter of intent from Marriott to do a 400-key hotel plus a 60 or 70,000 square foot convention center. We're going to build thousands of apartments. We're all going to build thousands of apartments. But you're going to get me. I'm going to be at the meetings. I'm going to be at the neighborhood meetings. The biggest thing we can do as a company is listen to you. We've come up with ideas that we think are good, but like some of the other developers have said, this will not be the final plan of what's done. The final plan of what's going to be done is when we hear the voices from you guys at our booths back here and our continual neighborhood meetings that we'll have where we can really talk one-on-one and we're not relegated to 15 minutes and we can hear your needs. And there's going to be a balance of this works, this doesn't work, how about if we do this? It's a big piece of property, it's a big opportunity. And the one thing that this property really, really gives us an opportunity to do that is probably the most exciting for me, I do these developments for my passion. I love doing them. I love the creativity. I love creating a vision. But this property gives us the opportunity to set an example in the entire nation how you can take a piece of property that has a bad past to it, that had a wonderful history to it, and that we can come together and bring the community together and recreate something that everybody likes and loves and is proud of. For me, I've said all along in this process that we're in, that if I cannot walk away from this with you guys saying, well done, good job, Chuck. He came in, he did what he said, we love it. I don't want to do it. I want to do something that everybody is happy with, that you as a community can be proud of, and so can we. Thank you very much for your time.
We're going to take a 5-minute intermission. Again, I will just remind everybody that you can submit your comments at our comment card boxes and also online at sli.do, password Trop, T-R-O-P, or scan the code on the comment card box. We appreciate you guys continuing to wear your masks, and we will get started in just a few minutes with our last presentation.
We got it down now. We know how this goes, huh? Very good. We are ready for our final presentation, and thank you for your continued energy and uplift. Please welcome now Midtown Partners Development and with Alex Vadia, who is going to present for them.
Hello. raise your hand if you're scared of public speaking. I'm trying to do the best job I can. This team deserves it. We at Midtown Development, me personally, function on two roles. One is to know a little bit enough to know who's amazing at what they do, and most important, who's very good people. And I'm very proud to be up here with these team members. You know, we've been at it for almost 2 years now, believe it or not. Midtown Development is an investor that develops. We are very long-term. My family's been in the business in Florida for more than 60 years. Developed the city of Wellington in Palm Beach County, which was 20,000 acres. But there's just something special. It's hard to pinpoint. It's just, you get it from everywhere of St. Pete. One thing I want to be very clear, you know, you're going to hear see a lot of pretty pictures. You're going to see a lot of some very nice, well done production videos, some models. That I'm aware of are the only team offering money for the land. We're offering $60 million. That being said, the first time I came to the city was because of the arts, probably when I was 8 years old. So the arts is everywhere here, and it was very important. When I met Bob Devin, I thought he's an amazing person that contributes to the community, and I hopefully look forward to spending time with him and all these team members up here.
Good evening. The great thing about the arts are the artists and the daily nutrition that the arts give to a community. And the great thing about this opportunity, in one fell swoop, all of these projects address that. This one, Midtown Developments, they have an area called Creekside, but they have an area called the Banyan area. And the arts will permeate through all of them. What's really lovely about St. Petersburg is that they are not something that we're aspiring to, it's something that we are or is. They're an emphatic statement about the way we'd like to live our lives here. And that's what's so delicious about being a part of the Midtown Project. And I'm not an expert so much as I'm a beneficiary of living in St. Petersburg in this moment and have watched the arts grow exponentially in the last 20 years, and they're continuing to grow. And I think with a project such as this or such as these, that would be the hallmark of them. And Charlotte. There you go.
Thank you, Bob. Hello, everyone. I'm here to specifically talk about the unkept promises and how Midtown is creating a long-lasting housing and community economic benefits opportunity. I'm with the Pinellas County Urban League, where I serve as the Vice President of Operations, and our focus is positive wealth and financial empowerment. And we provide these services through our Serious Business Academy, our Career Connection Center, and our housing development efforts. And we've been around and in this community serving for 40 years. This is the core reason of why we're on this team, and that is to oversee the audit process and to make sure that we're creating an equitable future for all. And we have experience doing that in the past with a couple of St. Pete College projects that we worked on, focusing on the beneficial community impact. We set a goal on those projects for 20% impact in the local community, and we ended up with 30%. And it was really easy because we've done this for a while. And we do it by building a pipeline of local vendors and construction workers and so forth. And we vet them and we get them training that they need. And then we place them in the hands of the developers. And those developers hire them. And for many cases, they are still working with those developers today. In terms of accountability and equity and inclusion, Midtown is committed to adhere to a strict reporting process on employment numbers and small business inclusionary goals. Midtown is also committed to funding small business and workforce training programs. And we are also excited to partner with Atlantic Pacific communities to build affordable housing in that component and partner with them. And so I'm going to hand it over to Lindsay.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm with Atlantic Pacific Communities. We're an affordable housing developer, and we're the partner, along with the Urban League, the other half of the dynamic duo that's really focused on building the attainable housing here for this project, and also in including local companies and local workers to build and operate these developments. Atlantic Pacific is the largest Florida-based affordable housing developer. Our company was started back in the late 1890s, so it's been over 130 years. We're a fourth generation family-owned company and plan to be around for many generations to come. Our team has built over 12,000 affordable and workforce housing apartments across the Southeast, and we manage 40,000 affordable and workforce apartments. And our team has also raised over $2.5 billion of debt and equity to support affordable housing. So this is what we do day in and day out. I think something that differentiates Midtown's program is that we are proposing to build between 6,000 and 8,000 residential units. That's a lot more than our competitors. In fact, I think it's about twice as many. And we have committed in writing to have 20% of those units be attainable housing, whether workforce or affordable housing. And that's the most, so that really is about almost 1,600 or more affordable and workforce housing apartments, which is more than any of the other teams up here tonight. And we want to do that because it's consistent with the St. Pete 2050 vision, which needs more housing and more affordable housing here. In addition, how do we make sure that locals are involved in building these apartments? Like Charlotte mentioned, we're going to be working together with the Urban League to ensure that we have job fairs. On all of our public-private partnerships, we have job fairs. We've gone door to door, leaving flyers so people know how to come and submit an application for a job. The Urban League has done something similar at their St. Pete College sites. We work in connection with local groups. In Fort Lauderdale, we had a local nonprofit build the kitchen cabinets and the bathroom cabinets for 800 affordable apartments over the course of 10 years. That's something we'd like to replicate here and in other ways. In addition, somebody mentioned mentor to mainstream. We've hired local laborers that started out operating the elevators on our job sites who are now working for us as full-time employees at Atlantic Pacific. We have subcontractors who are putting up drywall in a community room are now development partners and mentees at multi-phase 10-year projects. So this is something we know how to do. We love doing it. It's what differentiates us, our team, from other affordable developers. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Michael to talk about public spaces.
Thank you, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Digregorio. I'm a landscape architect with Hood Design Studio in Oakland, California. And I want to talk about the power of landscape and of public realm and how we see that playing out for this project and for our team. We've had the opportunity to work with communities similar to yours throughout the entire country, facing many of the same challenges that this community has faced. Our founder, Walter Hood, has really built his career on the topic of race and landscape. And what we know, unfortunately, is that this story isn't new, that the injustice that this particular community has faced is not new in America, and so we have had an opportunity to help, through landscape architecture, through public realm, help to try to amend some of those injustices. In our process, what we like to usually start with is getting people to reckon their memories of of a cultural landscape of a place. And that could be of the cultural landscape that exists today. And when I say landscape, I don't necessarily mean parks and gardens like we think of, but the city. And that could be what exists today or what has been removed. As the Reverend says, I think he grew up on third base. And so how do we exhume those things? How do we find traces of them and find the oddities and the strangeness in them and embrace that? Think of that as a way to move the design forward. And specifically for this project, we find that initially through tracing 3 linear aspects of the project. That's the Pinellas Trail, the Heritage Trail, and Booker Creek. And all of these grow from outside of the Tropicana site. And so we're thinking outside in. And when we start to pull through the successful aspects of those linear elements, we pull them into a greater open space network that we're proposing in the heart of our project. And this becomes a greater network of open spaces that starts with the communities that are there today. The network within our development is 36 acres. It's vast. There's space for a diversity of scales and types of open space here. And so we want to work through with the community of what they actually will become. But what we know is we would like Booker Creek to act as the heart, the civic heart of this new public space. And we want it to blend people, to blend nature, and to focus on inclusivity. And when we talk about inclusion, it is of course of the African American community that is here, but as our founder Walter likes to say, there are many other aspects of this, folks with disabilities, LGBTQ community, women, and so this really is much more far-reaching and something that we like to think about through our approach. And so overall,
3-minute warning.
What we think that we bring to this is a willingness to work through a process. And this is a process. And we listen, we learn, we present design options, and then we come back and we try it again with you. And it's through this cycle that we hope to build a culture of civic engagement that lasts far after design and construction is complete, that leads to ultimate ownership through the citizens. And so one thing that we know is that trust is really hard in these situations, and it takes time. But what we would offer to you is that if you could take that initial step with us, we're here to be proactive, have the conversations with the community, and keep it moving. Thank you.
What? Did I say something?
In all of the groups that we've talked with at the Urban League, this is the first group that not only came and talked with us about being involved in this project, they said, we don't want you to be a bystander. We want you to help us design this project, make sure people are involved in this project, and we're willing to have a contract with the Urban League for the next 20, 30 years to make sure we do the right thing. And so we're not just standing over the table, we're sitting at the table. And so this is not where we're saying to the community that we may attend the meeting. We're part of the meeting. We're part of the decision making in this project. I am proud to be part of this group because having to live and be moved out of gas plant to make way for all kinds of development, this is one that has sat down at the table and say, we are serious about what we're about to do. And the Urban League is going to be tied to this project, not by a fly-by-night group, but tied to this project as a long-standing group that is part of the National Urban League movement that's over 100 years old. Thank you.
All right, we're going to break for about 5 minutes and get set up for our Q&A. If you have any final questions, please bring them to the comment boxes. We will pick them up quickly, sort them, and we will welcome Trevor in just a few minutes. Thank you.
We've heard 4 extraordinary visions. We've heard from Portman Holdings, Third Lake, Sugar Hill Community Partners and JMA Ventures, Unicorp National Developments, and Midtown Development. And hopefully it has evoked lots of excitement and emerged questions. You may have come with some questions tonight. We've compiled them all, and our marketing director is going to keep time now as we run through these questions. And so there's only one thing left for me to do, and that's to turn this thing over to a professional, Mr. Trevor Pettiford, who always brings the most ethical and fair questions to us when he's covering our community. And so we thought he was the perfect partner to do so tonight and bringing your questions to these developers. So please help me welcome from Bay News 9, Mr. Trevor Pettiford.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. There we go. That's much better. How many people have gotten their vaccinations? The first one? Nice. Second ones? Good, good, good. Let's keep that going. Give yourselves a round of applause for getting vaccinated. It is my pleasure and my honor to be here this evening to be a part of such an important event that is going to really, truly change the face of St. Petersburg. We've got a number of questions that I've been able to go through. Some of them were repeating, so you might not hear your question, but you might hear something similar. I hope we're able to get to all of them, and I know everyone here is eager to ask them. And there will be, based on the questions, you'll have several minutes, either 2 to 3 or maybe 1 minute to answer it. And some are directed to the general group, and we'll each have each group answer it, as well as there are some questions that are directed specifically to certain developers, and we'll ask those specifically to those. So let's get started. The first question is a general one, because a lot of people were asking about Booker Creek. And it is, Booker Creek has a minimal water flow now. When will this mass of water, where will this mass of water come from? And we'll start at the far end here and work our way here. You have 2 minutes each.
So that's a great question, actually, because some of it is natural. And I think to get the feel that you look at in a lot of the renderings that all the firms shown, there's going to have to be a natural and artificial flow to it. Otherwise, it will stagnate through the year. And we'll have times when it's overflowing. So if we're truly going to size it the way we want it to for amenities, for recreation, things like that, we're going to have to introduce a little bit of water. There's a whole engineering piece to that I apparently didn't go to the right school to figure out and be able to talk intelligently about it, but we have team members on the team that will help us figure out the hydrology.
Thank you. My name is Adam Carnegie. I'm with Stantec, an engineer on the team. In fact, with me is Brandon Johnson, who is working on several creeks right now for stream restoration and evaluation in St. Petersburg. Our firm has done, as we said before, over 1,000 miles of stream restoration within the country, urban and non-urban. This is a very narrow stream. In fact, I will tell you all that it is also an impaired water body, bacteria and dissolved oxygen. We will begin our approach by carefully looking at the data and collecting the data, which frankly doesn't exist right now. We have to understand stream flows and so on. But in our design of the stream, what is often the case is that where you have a very flashy stream, which rapidly grows and then shrinks back to a trickle, is that one would use ecological wider channels while keeping a smaller channel nested through the middle of the channel. That allows you to have the best of both worlds. And Barbara here, who is our landscape architect, is really well versed at taking that kind of fluctuating channel and fixing it so that it works aesthetically as well as hydrologically and ecologically.
Hi. We're going to answer this in 2 parts. I'm going to let my esteemed engineer, Dawn, take it first.
Thanks, Chuck. In our plan, we have probably the most natural approach to the stream. So we're leaving the stream as natural as possible, as well as the larger portion is going to be our actual stormwater management system. There is some contamination out there, so there's some issues with, commingling the groundwater and everything. So we're trying to keep it as natural as possible, and expanding it and amenitizing it. And Chuck could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I started developing 23 years ago, doing this type of development, everybody used to take the retention area and they would either put it in the front and put a fence around it, or they would hide it in the back and never amenitize it. In every one of our developments, we always say, how can we take the water and make it an amenity? Whether we put fountains in it, whether we put trees around it, whether we put sea life in it. And so we will definitely amenitize it. I mean, honestly, I think all the developers can say the same thing. None of our engineers have gotten into hydraulic studies yet, but it is an amenity there that we plan on using and bringing through the property and making it part of the beautiful park and making it a beautiful amenity for the development. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Walker. I'm an engineer with George F. Young here in downtown St. Pete, and there's not really much more that I can add that hasn't already been said. We really haven't delved 100% into the engineering. I will say that Booker Creek is a highly urbanized watershed. It drains a portion north of the Tropicana Field site through the Tropicana Field site and south. In a highly urbanized environments like this, when you do get rainstorm events, you get large flushes of water that come very rapidly. And similar to what the gentleman from Stantec said, by widening that, you can obviously slow those flushes of water down through a series of weirs and recirculation pumps and some of those type things. You can actually store water back and you can recirculate it through the system when there's times of low flow. But at this point, the engineering analysis hasn't been done to fully give you the answer that you're looking for. However, we do believe it's possible, at least from an engineering perspective, to make Booker Creek into the amenity that all four of the developers are currently showing.
Yeah, I would like to add from a public space standpoint, though, I think we can think about Booker Creek as a few different components, and not everyone is going to act the same in a storm event, and maybe not every component has to be fully natural. There's a lot of this development that won't be natural. It's constructed nature. And so we can think about how we can supplement some of that water flow with some other parts of the development. And the other thing I think we would say is thinking about the public space around Booker Creek as flexible within that channel. And it's very similar to in the Bay Area, we get times of very large water flow, and these arroyos become very strong public spaces when there isn't water in them. So having the right design in there can reinforce the idea that it's used whether there's a lot of water or there's not a lot of water in it.
All right, thank you. This next question is again posed to the entire group, so we'll start from the far right here, or my right, and then go to the left. You'll have 3 minutes to answer this question. What assurances and guarantees have each developer included in their plans for minorities and those typically overlooked in the community development plans? Can I repeat that? I'm sorry. What assurances and guarantees have each developer included in their plans for minorities and those typically overlooked in community development plans?
I think right now you can drive by the site and say two things. Either I went to the baseball game, or unfortunately I used to live there. I think we want in the future for people to drive by and say, I live there, I go with my grandson there, I worked there, I started a business there. One thing that was very successful in our project in Miami that I welcome you to come, which is very similar to this, it's 56 acres, where we have around 6,000 units. And there we focus on micro retail. I think we'll work with the Pinellas County Urban League to create unique built-out spaces where they're fully built out, so the chef of the community has an idea, doesn't have to be in construction. Chef should be cooking, starting a business. So we will prep certain locations on the retail so new business owners in the community can come in and open and own businesses.
Another aspect of is what we call beneficial community impact. And that's where the Urban League comes in to help assure that minority businesses and residents and others to have an equitable opportunity to work or to be trained or to have their businesses housed at this site. And Midtown has agreed to strict reporting on numbers for employment and small businesses. So that is a big part of this plan, which is why the Urban League is a part of this plan, because of its inclusion, because of its sustainability and its resiliency.
Hi. So, we hired Inclusivity to work with us in this manner, as well as the contractors we hire. The contractors we hire have, we do not directly hire the employees. We hire various different contractors who are going to build for us. So it's going to be important for us, and it's important for this community to make sure and hold our contractors accountable. We'll do that with our partners that we've made here to make sure that they are including everybody in the community. We know how important this is. The minorities have been disenfranchised on this property, and it's time to make it right. And we can easily do that by holding our contractors accountable. We can get numbers, we can make sure everybody's included in it, and it's very important for us that it's equitable for everybody. So we are absolutely going to do our part.
Okay, so I hopefully I'm interpreting the question accurately. I think what I would say here, and by the way, again, 3 minutes, unfortunately, for all of us is not enough time to talk about the subject, but in our view, this is something that needs to be applied holistically to the project. What that means is, from a chronological standpoint, that has to apply from the feasibility stage to design to construction to operation. In terms of the specific assets, we have a specific plan to make sure that folks of color are properly treated and given the right kinds of opportunity and access as it relates to housing, as it relates to retail, as it relates to office space, as it relates to programmed green space. So I want to emphasize that this is not a let's pick one area or another for us. This is something that pervades our entire approach. So let me turn this over to Thomas, and he'll get into more detail.
Thank you, David. I just want to address real quick. When we talk about diversity, diversity is not, it has to be intentional. And when you talk about diversity as a whole, our team is intentional about what we have done. When you look at our team, it also incorporates not only from the design side, we have as David mentioned, we have the largest African-American owned architectural firm in the country on our team. We have the largest engineering firm in the Tampa Bay area that's part of our team. We have a general contractor in Ducon and Ernie leading our construction effort. So it's not about what you're gonna do after the fact, it's what you do now. And our team is committed to doing it. You see, as a part of our team, we're actually doing it now. And so we've included that intentionally as a part of our team, and is committed to making sure that this community as a whole benefits from all that has been done.
And to go a little further, how do we ensure that people aren't forgotten? Number one, as a general contractor, we know that when you're at the table assigning contracts, it's different than just trying to influence the contract. So we know how to break down the plans. The hardest thing as a contractor, a small contractor, somebody telling you that you're not large enough to do the project. That's always the first excuse. So what we do is we're at the table from the beginning, and we're breaking down the project. We're minimizing scope to the level of the capacity of the local minority businesses to ensure that everybody has a seat at the table, those businesses that are usually forgotten. The other thing is we go into the schools, we mentor, we bring up the generations and make sure that they're included and get exposure, walking the project with kids who typically don't even have access to such projects. So that's the key to making sure that nobody's forgotten, is we include and we break down the project to the capacities of the local contractors that are here at the table.
I applaud you. That's a great answer. To start with, we're accustomed to dealing with minorities and disadvantaged communities in the projects that we do. One of the first projects I worked on roughly 20 some odd years ago was the Hawks Arena for the Atlanta Hawks, and in that project we achieved a 36% MWBE participation on that project. So I'm very much accustomed to that. I worked with Coca-Cola years ago. We hit 25%. And we're currently working with MARTA in Atlanta. And the goal there is really more on the disadvantaged business, more so than the MWBE side of it. That one is still in discussions relative to what kind of hurdles we're looking to hit. But we're accustomed to dealing in this, and we think that there's a lot of dialogue that has to occur with both the community and the city in order to figure out what the realistic goals are for this particular location and this particular development. And our thinking on this is that when you deal with this, you're dealing with it from the early stages relative to design and construction. And even though you don't see the people up here, Portman Holdings, or the Portman Companies, is basically 25% Afro-American. HKS is 36% minority. So we have a lot of people who are in our home offices who are minorities and Afro-Americans who are participating in this project. So we're accustomed to using those resources. We, like others, engage general contractors who have disadvantaged programs that they implement, job training programs, everything that you can do to basically create a job that survives the development of the project. Because what you don't want to do is basically have somebody be able to work on the construction phase and then not be able to take that trade and go use it again over and over again in the industry. And so this is something that we're accustomed to, we're committed to it, and and we think that we'll hit similar goals here with the city of St. Petersburg. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is posed for all four groups again. This time I'm going to start with you and move down to the second group here, third and fourth. So everyone gets a chance to be first and gets to be last. So the question is, can you be specific about whether you will need more than the $75 million the city is providing for infrastructure? 2 minutes.
I think in our program, how much did we ask for? We asked for $100 million of TIF, and we demonstrated how our project, this is not coming from the community, it's coming from the tax increases that we would produce in the property. So it'd be tax incremental financing, so neighbors in the community aren't paying for this money. That's really important to us, that it doesn't come from the local community, that it comes from the development that we produce. So our plan right now is $100 million. The one thing I'll tell you about all the different developers, you know, we've offered to pay, how much for the property? $40 million for the property. We're putting in a certain amount of infrastructure. It really comes down to, at the end of the day, and this would be a negotiation with the city and staff, of what level of infrastructure we put in. Are we putting in bridges over the highway? Are we taking down ramps? And what are we doing with water and sewer? What are we doing with widening roads? We all have made assumptions, and we hire engineers, and we get to that at the end of the day. The city gave us a guideline of $75 million, and I know there's different amounts used across the board. When we did our calculations of what we thought we would do with water, sewer, and other infrastructure, we thought it was going to be closer to $100 million to be able to produce the type of development that we think needs to be on the site. That is a negotiated item, and it all comes down to really how much do we put into the infrastructure of the development. So right now, we are north of that, but it just depends where we're at the end of the day.
For us, the answer is a little bit simpler and shorter. $75 million, not a dollar more. And we're offering $60 million for the land.
Thank you for the question, first of all. And I think when you think about TIF money and how it's created from increasing the property values, that money then comes back to help the development. I think right now, if you were to say, what does this site look like today, the real honest answer is that nobody in this room really knows. There have been 4 different development proposals put forward, and until there is more specificity around that from the city or the Rays as to what's going to get built, I think it's very difficult to pinpoint an exact number today. I think anybody that sits here and says, I know exactly where we're going to land, I'm not sure that that's really the case. I think that you have to let this play out. The good news here is that the city of St. Petersburg has got a vibrant tax base. They've got a fantastic credit rating, thanks to good city leadership. It's one of the best credit bond ratings in the country. So they have the ability to do creative financing because you have been good stewards of your citizens and of your taxpayers. And then the second part I would say is that we hired Piper Sandler as one of our partners. Piper Sandler is the 3rd largest municipal financing firm in the United States. They've done over $20 billion worth of municipal financing projects. And so to the extent that we do need to get creative, because either the $75 million isn't enough to cover what the city would like to see and what the Rays would like to see and what City Council would like to see, I think we've got that ability to be flexible as we go down the road. So I wish I could give you the exact dollar amount as we sit here tonight, but I don't think that that's quite possible. But we would start at the $75 million base and try to achieve that number without having to dip back into taxpayer funding any more than that. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a complicated question. I agree with a lot of what's been said, frankly. There are a lot of significant issues that have yet to be fully resolved that would influence exactly how this is structured. I do want to say that if you think about the question in terms of, is there more than $75 million worth of infrastructure required to realize the vision here, the answer is yes. I mean, we've done the work. So Ernie and his team and our partner Suffolk spent 90 days taking a pretty deep dive on horizontal infrastructure. It's more than $75 million. It's more like $140, $150 million. So that's going to have to come from somewhere. Where we end up, or where any of the developers, frankly, end up in a negotiation with the city is going to determine exactly how that gets structured. The other thing I would say, just to echo a point that was made a minute ago, is that the tax base on this property is zero. And so when we talk about public support, we're not talking about incremental taxes. This is an opportunity to participate in the uplift that's going to occur based on the development here. We're also proposing a convention centers. I think everybody knows convention centers in this country are publicly financed. I'm happy to describe in more detail why that's the case. It's also an asset that we believe can literally deliver billions of dollars worth of economic value to the city in the coming years. So that's an investment that will deliver a substantial return to St. Petersburg. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question will get a 1-minute time limit, and we'll start with this group here, second, third, and fourth. If a deal is reached with the Rays, what will be the design development process, and how will that fit into the overall project design and development? Yeah, the Rays, yeah.
Okay, so it was. How does it fit into the process? And
if a deal is reached with the Rays, what will be the design development process, and how will that fit into the overall project design and development?
Sure. Okay. Our operating assumption, which I think is typical for these kinds of stadium projects, is that the Rays are going to do that themselves. We would love to help them. We have deep experience on these kinds of developments, as I mentioned earlier, but typically it's essentially a standalone exercise. We'll support that in any way that we need to. We're very familiar with how that process works. So let's just take that as an assumption for now. So then the issue becomes, how does the stadium fit into the mixed-use development more broadly? One of the things we've learned from experience is that oftentimes stadiums and arenas, or at least with respect to the mixed use around them, are viewed in terms of nothing but upside. Look at all these extra people who are going to show up. It's an extra, the Rays did 1.2 million in attendance in 2019. That's a pretty good number. How do we monetize all those folks? And there's certainly value to thinking about it that way. The other side of it, though, is how do you play defense? And what I mean by that is there's a community that exists today, and there'll be a new community, a new neighborhood that we're going to build on the Trop. People who will live there, people who will work there, people who will be out for a date night with their partner. They're not there to go to the game. And when you have 20 or 25 or 30,000 people who all want to show up within 2 or 3 hours of each other and go home within 15 minutes of each other, that creates some challenges. So you need to make sure that the stadium is properly integrated, that its guests can be circulated through the project efficiently in a way that's not disruptive, and so they have a great experience. So I guess where I would conclude on this is to say we're familiar with all those issues, and we would work very collaboratively with the Rays and other stakeholders to make sure that the team is set up for success and the development is as well.
Yeah, I would say we have a very good relationship with the Rays, both the front office and the ownership team. We've been in a dialogue with the Rays for many years. I think I am the only one in this room that actually served on the executive committee for the Rays 100 that looked at relocating the stadium to Ybor City. I was on that commission for about 2 years. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it didn't end up moving out of St. Pete. I think ultimately that will probably be a very good thing for this community. But what I would say is that the Rays are going to have to be a big part of that conversation. And at this point, the Rays have not really talked about their intentions as to how they would work with a developer, because I don't think that this process is far enough down the field. With respect to our experience, we've done this in cities all across America. So we worked with the Minneapolis redevelopment of the Metrodome, where the Vikings play now at US Bank. We did the Dallas Cowboys. We've done SoFi Stadium in California. So this is not new to us. We've worked with sports team ownership all over the country, not just baseball, but football and other sports. And so I think until that becomes more clear from the ownership of the Rays, it's hard to say today, much like the financing question, can you put an exact detailed process on how that looks today? No, you can't, but we do have experience in doing sports stadiums, and we do have a very good relationship with the Rays and their ownership, and we intend to have a very robust dialogue as soon as that time is right.
Great. Well, if the Rays step up, we actually can work with them, and we actually do have a process. We'll follow the exact same process with them as we will with every other user. And in the design of cities, one of the things you're trying to do is to create really good real estate. And what we'll do with the Rays first is sit down and let's craft out how much land they need, where it should go in the phasing process that we have. Like on land we've already built on, they won't be able to put their stadium there. So we'll craft a site for them, and then we'll work with them so that they understand that they're part of something larger, that we have a plan that has a public realm, that it's got neighborhood connections that they're going to have to adhere to, so they'll have to live by our design guidelines, and they'll have to fit into our vision. If they want to bring in another architect, that's perfectly fine. We do that all the time. We're great collaborators. In fact, we prefer that. But this is nothing different than the way any normal project would happen in a city.
I think it's very important for whoever the developer is selected that they take the helm in this. You see what happens when a ball team decides and does it on their own. You get a big parking lot. And that's what's there today. So I think the master planning, we have a wonderful plan that we showed you earlier that shows a Manta Ray, and we laid out a great stadium. He went back there. Architect did a wonderful job doing that. But one thing that I think is really important from looking at this is, and I've been involved with Orlando Magic, for years. And what happens around all the retail is when it's not a game day, the retail dies, and eventually they go out of business. So this has to work, no matter if the Rays are here or not, it has to work without the Rays and have the Rays be an enhancement. If the stadium's going to be there, it needs to be activated for more than ball games. It needs to have soccer. It needs to have music festivals. It needs to have other events happening. What I don't want to get caught up in as a developer is that the 7-year time period. This development can start and can be underway and can get going, and we can negotiate with the Rays and do what's going to be best for this community. We're trying to design something that's great for the next 100 years. So we don't want to let the next 7 years stifle us of what we can really do. We need to have a collaborative effort where the Rays say, wow, this is a wonderful development. We want to be part of it, but it should not take away from the development itself.
Thank you. This next question was posed directly to Sugar Hill, but I believe all the developers here could answer this because I thought it was a pretty good question about retail affordability. So we'll start at the far end here and just work our way down like we did at the beginning. Unit count for the apartments and condos, the retail rent controls to enable local businesses to thrive. What are you going to do as far as those rent controls and that availability for local business to thrive in those spaces designed for them?
How much time?
1 minute.
I'll start with the retail. Our goal is to have as many local operators in our community as we possibly can. Because we always execute on mixed-use developments and we're not solely a retail operator, we often set our retail rents below market value so that we can attract local businesses as opposed to your national operators that can pay much higher rents. And if you're not intentional about that, and if you're not kind of seeing the bigger picture of your community, a lot of people will lease the retail spaces at the highest rents possible because that creates the most value, but it creates the most value for the retail. it doesn't create the most value for the community, for the development. And so we intentionally set our retail rents below market value so that we can attract a more creative and local group, so that it's a better product. It ends up making the development in the community that much better. And then regarding the residential product, I think was the question about how we would set rents and how we would manage that process. Look, we think affordable housing is a huge problem in this country, not just in St. Pete, but nationally.
Time.
I believe that was your time.
Okay.
Okay, 60 seconds. This is a lot. I'll go very quickly.
It's a lot.
For on the retail side, this is really about affordability, right? If I'm a local merchant, if I'm a small merchant, there are questions like, do you have smaller spaces available so that they can actually take that size bite to be successful? What kind of balance sheet requirements you're going to require? What kind of sort of credit worthiness are you going to require? Those are areas where we're committed to being flexible and allocating a certain amount of retail space to provide sort of preferred treatment to local merchants is probably the best way to put it. Agreeing to a percentage rent instead of a fixed rent structure is another way you can provide some relief for these kinds of folks. So there are a number of programs here. We've also committed to making grants annually. We'll put together an external committee made up of community organizations to decide sort of who gets the grants to help small retailers get started and kicked off. So let me quickly hand this over to Sean to talk about it.
Well, on the affordable housing side, there's going to be restrictive covenants. Can you repeat the question, please? I'm sorry, sir.
Time.
Can you repeat the question, please, sir?
I'm sorry. They also had time. It was about the we will have more questions on. I'll keep that to the timekeeper. Can we give them more time?
2 teams have already gone, so why don't we have each do another minute? If we need to do another go around, we will.
So would you like to just, you want to give them just another go around, go again, and give them each 2 minutes?
Sure.
Okay. Let's rewind, and we'll go back to the beginning and give you 2 minutes to answer the question, and I'll pose it again. Just the unit count, the retail affordability unit count for apartments and condos, and what about the retail rent controls for the, now I can't read it, for local businesses to thrive, and as far as affordable housing for residents as well. You're going to let them finish? Okay.
Well, I mean, on the affordable housing side, all of our affordable housing is going to be guaranteed to be affordable at the levels that we promise, at 30% AMI, 60% AMI, 80% AMI, and 120% AMI via restrictive covenant. There's going to be a restrictive covenant recorded against that building. It's going to run with the land for 30 or 50 years, depending on the financial structure, and that's how it's going to happen. And in our buildings, often we're going to have retail on the first floor of our apartment buildings, and of course we'll provide those spaces at below market rates because we're not really underwriting those retail spaces anyway in our affordable communities. So those are going to be available for people trying to start up, and we'll do everything we can to support them.
I would just say very quick. I think there was a question about the number of units. Right? I think I heard that. The number of units?
Yeah.
Did someone ask that? Go ahead, Sean.
Well, it's 1,500 affordable units in the case of no ballpark, and 1,000 affordable units in the case of a ballpark, I believe.
And I'll go back if you had something to add to what your statement was earlier.
Just real quick, thank you for saying this. I think 60 seconds is way too short, but thank you for doing that. What I would say is on the affordable piece, we were just selected by the city of St. Petersburg to not only do some affordable retail for rehabbing the old MSC, but building a new MSC, but also building additional not just market rate housing, but also affordable housing. And we committed to 31% of those units being affordable rate in the market. So that's something that we're doing today in the city of St. Petersburg, just a couple of blocks from here. And then I'll let Harvey talk a little bit more specifics.
So Ken mentioned 30%. I think our goal on the site would be something similar. But similar to the program and design that we mentioned earlier, we have a vision for the site, and we have a view on what we think should be there. But we're also not trying to force down any of our beliefs. We think affordable housing is a huge problem in this country, as I mentioned. We build affordable housing, as Ken mentioned, in most of our deals. But you don't know it's affordable because it's designed appropriately. And while we believe it's very important, we also hear objections to it at times. And for those, what I hope we can convince you of is if we do our job appropriately and execute well, you won't know it's affordable. You shouldn't see it as affordable. But it is a huge problem. Our teachers need help. Our firefighters and police officers need help. But not just from a rental perspective, but from a for sale perspective. So many people in this country build wealth through their personal residences. And if that's not attainable for people, that wealth creation is not attainable either. So not only from a rental perspective, we're also expecting to see it from a for sale perspective as well.
Thank you. We'll give you 2 to 3 minutes.
Thank you. That was well said. In any great development, the affordable housing should be indistinguishable from the other housing in the development. There's subsidies, there's formulas where the AMI is average median income, that no one should pay more than 30% of their income for their dwelling. So we will have 30%, about 1,400 units of affordable housing integrated through the project, where you would not be able to walk in and pick out which one's which. And that's really important. It gives people a chance to grow in the community and go to the next level. We have workforce housing, we have luxury housing. So there's going to be all sorts of different housing in the community to accommodate everybody. What's really interesting is the retail. We've got a tremendous amount of retail experience, and we've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of leases and deals with local tenants. And what it comes down to with locals is working with them on their business plan, providing them an environment for success, providing them tenant improvement money that'll work, evaluating their business plan to find the weaknesses and the strengths in it to make sure that they're going to be successful. We do that every single day. On the phone on the way over here, we were talking to different tenants. So, we have people all the time call us up. I want to open an ice cream shop. I want to open a sub shop. I want to open today a daycare center. And understanding the business plan and literally having the conversation, working with them. And I've said before, I'm involved in every one of those conversations. I got a call literally walking across the street from our daycare. Chuck, how can you help me out? This is what I need to do. And I have those conversations. Taylor and I have those conversations together. We don't pawn them off to other people. We get involved in it because we know that for our development, our community to be successful, every one of the businesses have to be successful. Like I said, we didn't evict anybody during COVID because we knew for the future of them and for the future of ourselves, they needed to be successful. And that's the same with the apartments or even the for sale units. We want them to be successful because you as a developer cannot be successful unless the people you do business with are successful. And that's just important to us. We get to know everybody, they're great people, and we want them to succeed, and we're there to help them. In an RFP, we provide that we're going to give them a period of free rent, escalated rent, and work with them to build their business. And we've done it time and time and time again.
Thank you. Finally.
Hi, so our team has committed to providing 20% of the housing units as affordable or workforce housing. That equates to up to 1,600 units of attainable housing. In terms of how the rents are set for those units, we use state and federal subsidies to finance those units. The state sets the rents. It's that simple. They set the rent to be a third of your monthly income. We enter into a compliance agreement for 15 years. Every year, we prove to the state that the people living in the apartments meet those income levels and that we are charging the correct rents for those residents.
When it comes to the retail, I don't think it's extremely important. Cool, unique, local retail comes at cheap rent. You see it in neighborhoods as they grow. The national companies come in and they kind of take over the neighborhood retail feel. We value that and we understand that, and I think the way that we enhance that is by creating different types of spaces where they're ready for the chef to come in that wants to open a restaurant just to put paint on the walls. And it's extremely important. We want to create an experience. Someone that lives next in Water Street in Tampa, give them a reason to come here. And national tenants won't be that. Also, as locals to own businesses, that it just creates a certain atmosphere and environment where you go in to the restaurant and the chef knows your name, or the bar and the bartender knows you on a first name basis. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question is posed to the St. Petersburg team. So I'm not sure who will represent that. But the question is, I heard a lot of we will build what the market supports. What are the current estimates of affordable and workforce housing units we need today in St. Pete?
So are we the St. Petersburg team?
I think that was meant for staff, so maybe we could skip that and.
Okay, so we'll.
If you want to call us the St. Pete team, we'll take it.
Okay, well, we'll hold on to that one then. The next question.
Staff will follow up.
That's a follow. Okay. This one again is posed to the entire group, and we will forget where I started. We'll start down here and work our way this way. What approximate percentage of the 86-acre site will or could be considered green space?
Much time?
1 minute on this one.
Yeah, if the sort of norm anywhere you go is 50% of the land gets developed and 50% is left over for open space. And so we're very close to the 50% number that you find in normal cities. So think about that when you think about 86 acres and the amount of land that gets dedicated. And then the key to design is to listen to people and make sure we have proper variety.
What's important about our plan, and a moment ago, Midtown said 75 million, we'll pay 60 million. It really comes down to density. If I doubled the number of apartments I'm going to put on the site, I can pay more. I can take less public money. What we tried to do is create a great balance. We have 37 acres of park space. Not one other plan has that. And that's really where the discussion comes in. If we're going to take less than 100 million for infrastructure, we're going to need to build more density. And we tried to keep our density down so we could provide that great public 37-acre park. And I just think it's important, and that's going to be a discussion between the community and staff to see what is exactly the right balance. I love our balance, but maybe it's not quite enough. Maybe we need to have a little bit more commercial space in order to take less TIF money. But I think the open space is so important, the public space, the green space, and we have the most on our plan, and I think everybody saw it. It's beautiful.
Hi. Yeah, I think the way our plan is designed, it really isn't just about park space. The whole network of streets and plazas and history walks and Pinellas Trail, all work together to make a very green community and divided into neighborhoods that all have their own unique character. So it's really, we have a high percentage of green space, and it's everywhere. It's fully encompassing the community.
Yeah, I think on the notion of green space, it's important to balance that, as Barbara just said. It's not just about making big parks, it's about making the right scale of parks within that development area. So it's finding the right mix between what you build and the open space that you have available.
Boy, I wish I didn't have to follow both of them, because that was well said from both of you guys. It's about finding the balance. It's about defining green and hardscape. Not all greenscape is green, as we may know, and it does get pocketed through the streets and the individual communities. And so right now, the way we're looking at it with the stadium on site and the public realm that we developed that supports that stadium, we're at least a third. And I would expect that to grow if the stadium is not there. But, the city of St. Petersburg has a lot of great pocket parks all over the town. So what we don't want to do is to create a park that's so big that we take away from some of those smaller community pocket parks that exist today, number one. Number two, the investment that you just spent on the waterfront. That's a beautiful park, and we don't want to compete with that. We want to create something that's complementary to it.
All right, thank you. Next question, again, posed to all four developing groups, and we'll start with you, second, third, and fourth. This is dealing with finances. What is the financial stability of the groups, and how can we find out that information?
So you said the financial
I'm sorry.
stability of...
What is the financial stability of each group, and how do we find out that information? Sorry, it does echo a lot. You know.
How much time?
I'm sorry, 3 minutes.
You got anything you want to share on this? What's that? All right. Yeah. I mean, I guess I would point to a couple of things. I mean, one is that we're happy to describe in more detail the size of the projects that we're currently working on, how they're financed, how they're structured. That should give some indication. We're not publicly traded, so I don't want to suggest that there are financials out there that are available online that anybody can go and look at and sort of see what that looks like. And we expect, frankly, if we're fortunate enough to be selected in any negotiation with the city, that there'll be further discussion in more detail. We'll demonstrate more specifically what our specific financial capabilities are. Hopefully that's reasonable, but that's how we'd approach it. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, at JMA, we've done billion-dollar projects. We finance portions of it ourselves. We work with equity partners, large houses, investment houses, depending on the size of the project. Haven't really worked through the specifics of how we're going to structure the capital stack in this, but we've got the wherewithal and the experience to do very large projects of this size.
At Third Lake Partners and Portman, over the years, since 1957 and the early 2000s respectively, we've done more than $25 billion worth of projects. A lot of those projects were financed with some debt, very reasonable amounts of debt, but a lot of that equity came from our family and our family's principals. And so I think if anybody wants to dig into that further, there's a lot of information about Third Lake Partners online and Portman online, but I would say that there should not be a single question in anyone's mind that we have the financial capability to see this through. And the other thing is, I live in this community. My partners live about a mile from here. We've been here for more than a decade. We've done some very, very large projects, and there's no question about our financial capability. And I look forward, if anybody wants to dig into that deeper afterwards, we're happy to have that discussion with you or as we go throughout this process.
Yes, December 31st, we closed on a mall in 3 days since we saw the opportunity. We closed. It was in the value of $65 million, which we did not finance, as we are proposing $60 million to purchase the property, and a total contribution of $185 million between infrastructure and the purchase price. We are willing to put the dollars in escrow, so we're willing to put our money where our mouth is.
Unicorp's been in business for 23 years. We've been named top companies in the state of Florida. We've been named top companies in Central Florida, game changers of Central Florida over and over again. We've done billion-dollar projects. We have $2 billion projects going as we speak today. And I think if you Google our company, there's enough press out there that you'll feel comfortable that we can execute on this.
Thank you. This next question is directed to Portman Holdings and Unicorp National Development. Your renderings show the stadium with its backside to South St. Pete. Why should South St. Pete look at the backside of the project for another 30 years?
We have 10 minutes left worth of questions.
Okay.
I'm going to let our architect address this one.
During the presentation, we spoke about the shape of the domed piece of the stadium, which has got a particular shape. We thought the Ray was kind of fun. But the point is that the stadium, in terms of being a neighbor, needs to have a place that expands out into the park. So what we've done is we've created the outfield facing the park, just like Petco Stadium. And the way that we envision the stadium is to keep in mind that it's not putting the back against anything other than I-275 and 175. So the usability of the stadium is really toward the park and not toward the highway. So we made a conscious decision to bury a lot of the mass of the stadium next to the highway. We're not actually putting our back to anyone.
Portman?
Yeah, so if you're designing a stadium that has a backside to it, you're doing something wrong. The stadium is not intended to have a backside. I apologize if the rendering suggests that. The stadium has a public realm that is 360 degrees around it. Every side of that stadium is activated, whether the stadium is in use or not. So we are going to work very hard to make sure that those don't look like backsides. There's integration underneath the highway to both the south and to the west via access ways, public pedestrian pathways. We're hoping that we can encourage some investment around there, some infrastructure, some retail. But if you're designing something that's got a back door, then it's wrong. It's also, the MLB has a specific way that they like stadiums to face, mostly because of the sun angles that the players have to deal with at home plate. So it dictates some of where your seating wants to be. There's very few stadiums out there that have no seats behind home place and all the seats in the outfield. It doesn't present for a very good fan experience. So the challenge to us as designers is to create that public realm on the south and west side so we're not turning our backs to anyone.
All right, thank you. Given the time we have left, there's one question I wanted to get that everyone can address. It was concerning local business. Downtown St. Pete has an unwritten rule about adding chain restaurants. What will you do to apply these to your developments? And we can start with you first.
You know, that's a funny question. We just brought the first Portillo's restaurant to Central Florida, and we've got so many people who want to go there. We're opening the first White Castle in the state of Florida and in Orlando, and it's the largest in the world. We brought Trader Joe's to Orlando. So there are some really, really good chains out there. We're not going to disqualify chain restaurants. They're important. And also, sometimes when you have these great chain restaurants, you know what it does? It gives us the ability for smaller restaurants, for incubated concepts, for us to charge them less rent. A development like this needs to have a very good balance of some really good chain restaurants and local restaurants. The two of them come together. I love local restaurants. I prefer local restaurants. But there's some wonderful chain restaurants out there, and we want to have the perfect blend of both of them. So we're not going to disqualify chains, and I'm not going to get up here, and I hope my other developer friends don't get up here and tell you there will be no chain restaurants, because in order to finance developments like this, banks want to see some of those type of credit restaurants in a development.
We propose like 80% to be local, 20 to be national, and the national to be cherry-picked. Similar to Trader Joe's, we're about to open a Trader Joe's in our project in Midtown Miami. Again, I welcome everyone to walk and feel our project. There's some nationals that just don't belong. For the last 10 years, we spent 7 of them fighting Walmart. Walmart wanted to come and build a store within our community, and we fought them, and we're now developing into local small shop retail.
So I love the unwritten rule of no chains. I think it's a good rule to have. We own the 200 Central building across the street here, and we are in the process right now of starting to do a build out for a very authentic but very local high-end Italian restaurant that's going to go in the lobby of our building. We also are the owners of Centro Ybor over in Tampa, and we are always looking for authentic local restaurants. Because I do think that they add flavor. And I think if you just dot the landscape, whether it's Central Avenue or whether it's Tropicana site, with no offense to Starbucks, I think they're the favorite chain that gets kicked, unfairly or not. But we're not looking to just add more chain restaurants. We do want to encourage local business, because when you do a national chain restaurant, even though you might employ local people, the profits from that business end up going somewhere else. And any time that you can encourage a local business owner who lives in St. Pete or in downtown or the Tampa Bay area, that's a win in my book. So we love the unwritten rule. We intend to try and adhere to it as much as we possibly can by trying to do authentic local businesses here in St. Petersburg.
So what's happening on Beach Drive and on Central Avenue is the mayor's small business, small storefront corridor, actually, that they have in place. And that is to preserve the size of the storefront so that they are smaller and that they invite smaller businesses to have affordable spaces. And so our thought was to continue that small business corridor that currently exists and is very successful and is becoming increasingly unaffordable to our local businesses, to extend it to the site and to provide affordability at a larger scale.
Thank you, Sarah Jane. The other thing I'll add to this quickly, which I think is a theme that the other three folks have all talked about that we agree with, is that focusing on local businesses is not something that you have to do as a developer. It's something you get to do, right? It works better in most cases. There are some great chains. Somebody made that point before that I think could be a good fit for the Trop. But by and large, you're going to get the kind of vibrancy, energy, community connection if you have local folks who are running local businesses. So we've talked already about some of the things that we're planning on doing to support local merchants when they get started and help make sure they're successful and that the barriers to entry are accessible to them. But this is, it's an important theme for us generally. This is a big part of placemaking, and we believe in it very strongly. What's that? Yeah, one of the things, thank you, Adam. One of the things I should mention briefly is that we put this in our proposal. We've had some really good conversations with Mike Harding, for example, who's with Three Daughters Brewing, and we're partnering, if we're fortunate enough to be selected, to create the first African-American-owned brewery in Florida. 300 breweries, none of them are African-American owned. So that's a good example of where we're looking at a specific opportunity, and Mike suggested that to us, and we thought it was a terrific idea, but where we can foster, nurture, incubate local businesses, and in this case, what would be a minority-owned business. Thank you, Adam. It's great.
Thank you very much. And I believe that is our time. Thank you all for all your questions. I know we didn't get to all of them, but we tried to cover as many as possible. Thank you all for the answers as well.